So this is the process of making the 7-segment display once it's come out of the tank, once it's been etched. You'll notice in this first photo here, we've scrubbed all of the vivid off, so the copper is now exposed. One thing to notice is this section just here. You can see there is some extra copper. That might be a concern if it basically hasn't etched properly, but that might be a concern if the copper was touching, but it's not touching anything else, so we can ignore it. If it was touching, what we would do is we would take a file and we would just file away at it until it definitely wasn't touching anything that it shouldn't have been touching, because we don't want electricity running along the copper in places where it's not meant to go. Okay, and previously I've already explained these holes here, and you'll see at the end how they look in the completed part of the project. Okay, other features. You can notice, I don't think I talked about this in other places, but it's labelled with my name, HH, and 12 is the date. It's always good to date things, and I've just labelled the project here. You don't need to label the project. You could do this in a much smaller place. You don't even have to etch it in copper, so you could completely cut off this section and do away with that altogether, and you can just label it in vivid on the other side of the circuit board. Okay, so the next one, so coming from here down to here, you can see that we've drilled all the holes. So let's just come across, make that the centre of attention. We've taken our holes, all the dots, and we've drilled, and these are where the component legs are going to go. So when we take the resistors and LEDs and everything, we're going to put them through there and we're going to solder them. It's really important that you only use the 1mm drill bit to drill the holes there, otherwise there's huge gaps. Imagine if you try and put a small leg through a gap that size, and it's just going to be floating around loosely. You'll have to use 10 times as much solder to make it stick, and it wouldn't stick in this one anyway, this one over here as we're talking about, because there's no copper for it to stick to. Solder only sticks to the hot metal, and there's no metal around that one. But anyway, as I'm saying, stick to 1mm holes drilled for your components. Take your time, don't rush, don't break drill bits as best you can. Moving on, we're going to move up here where we can see the other side when it's been drilled, and we can also see the resistors. So we've put the resistors all in a nice row. These ones are 100 ohm, but 470 ohm would be fine. I was experimenting when I was doing this. And what other things can you notice? At this point, it should look pretty straightforward to see where you have to connect everything, because you've done all of your planning in the earlier stage in a lot of detail. You've put everything on nice straight lines down here and here and here, and it all, and your resistors all down the side here, and it all makes it much easier to see where you have to put all your components. One thing to note is that this has been flipped over. So we've drawn our PCB layout on one side, and then we flip it over and everything's back to front. So previously our resistors were drawn, if you remember the original diagram, our resistors were drawn down this side, but now they're on this side because we've flipped the board, we've turned it over, and the copper is facing down now. So when we talk about the top and the bottom of the board, this side is the top and this side back down here is the bottom. You always solder onto the bottom. Okay, and moving on to the next one. This is just having a close look at some of the soldering. You can see that the solder is nice and shiny. Shiny means that it's going to be clean and a good connection. If it's not shiny, it's usually not a very good connection. What else is there to note on this? Again, you can notice these nice lines, a little bit of perspective as they get closer together, because I'm taking the photo from a bit of an angle. It's consistent. Oh, the other thing is we've chopped something off. We've chopped the legs off. So instead of having the legs sticking up, let's just sketch this over here. Instead of having, say, the legs of my my resistor sticking out like that, here's our solder. Here's our solder on this side. We've taken our side cutters and we've chopped them off as close as we can down there. The less sticking up, the better. If we've done good solders, there's not going to be any problem with cutting them right off. If solders aren't so great and we cut them off, sometimes they become a bit loose. But they should look nice and clean and tidy. You can refine your soldering, get better at it. If you don't know how to get better at it, ask a teacher, or go and have a look at one of your mates who solder really well. Watch them solder and see what they do. Okay, so now we're finishing up. We've completed all of the LEDs, and what do you want to notice? You need to notice that you can't actually see from this diagram, but the LEDs are as close to the surface as we could get them. So here's the circuit board, and here's your LED. You don't stick your LEDs up like this. That's wrong. You want to have them as close to the surface as you can. Okay, so that, and then you solder them and chop off the legs and all that. They have to be close to the surface, right down here, because that stops them from bending over and being awkward and difficult to manage. When they're sticking up like this, the legs can kind of push in together and touch, and you have a short circuit, and that's definitely no good. You also have to make sure that they're pointing in the right direction, because sometimes they'll fold over and they won't all point in the same direction. Think about your packaging. Allow just enough space underneath here, again, for your packaging for what you're wanting to work on. And then the last thing I want to show you is just a couple of different perspectives of the way I've connected the wire through. Okay, so let's look at all three of these together. You can see that I've folded the wire. This is for the negative wire and all the positive wires. I don't think I've got a photo with all the positive wires, but I've folded the wire from the underneath. So we've gone underneath and we've gone up through and then back down here and soldered it in place. Okay, this is really important because it provides strength here. If you don't have this, if you've just got it straight in like that and then soldered, it tends to break at this point, because the metal bends and flexes and eventually just snaps and breaks. So here's the underside point of view. So you can see that it goes in from the underside and over the top, and then over here again is a nice side view. So you can see how it looks with all my resistors nicely lined up, ready for more of all these wires. Going to go underneath and up and in, underneath and up and in, and you're going to have a nice row of them all coming along here. Then you can tidy them up with a cable tie or something like that, but it'll just make it stronger, make it last longer, and it won't break. And there you have it. Fantastic. General principles: be tidy, take your time, don't rush it. There's always plenty of time to work on this stuff, unless you muck around and then it's all last minute and then you make mistakes and you take shortcuts. But don't do that. Have fun and take your time and work together, get lots of help from others, share ideas. That's what it's all about.